So the first thing here that I want to do is to create my widget. So let's go ahead in here to the third person here, blueprint. I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new folder. You can create this folder whatever you want. It doesn't necessarily need to be in here. I'm just doing here because I got all my characters around. So I'm going to create a folder called widget. And in that, I'm going to right click, and now we're going to get introduced by something different called user interface. This is the first time we're showing this. So, but don't worry about it, it's something very easy to use. Let's just create this, right? So I'm going to create here widget blueprint. And we're going to select from user widgets, and I'm going to call this user WP, user widget, WBP, sorry, WBP, user blueprint interface, and I'm going to call this just main UI, okay? And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to open up the widget, and here you probably have, you got introduced to something new. So this is where you define your widget, like your like how the health bar color, or animations for the text, or when you get items or something like this. You define everything here, right? So let's create here the basic idea here is that we're going to create a canvas, and we're going to put a number, which is going to be, it doesn't necessarily need to be health, but we can call health, and we're going to change the number when the player touches something. So let's do this. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to play with a canvas. So I need a canvas panel on my scene, right? Now that I have the canvas, we can start to organize where I want the thing to be. Okay, so I want something, say health 1 or 2 or 3 or something like this. So what I can do here is I can get 2 text. So I can put one text here, and I can get another text in there, right? So this one here, we're gonna rename this to text label, right? And this one here, we're gonna call text value, right? You can call whatever you want. I'm gonna compile and save. And this one here is gonna be something like 10, for example. And this is gonna be the text content, sorry, it's gonna be health, like this. Something very, very basic. But as you can see here, they're not really aligned, right? So the best way to align your stuff is you can use a horizontal box. So let's search for horizontal box. Let's bring this here. And I'm going to get those 2 elements, and I'm going to drag and drop inside this box. And now you can see everything is aligned. And pretty much that's it. That's all we need for our UI. Now if you press play, you're not going to be able to see this widget because we have to tell the player what widget we're using, and we also need to store the reference of the widget, right? So I'm going to open up my third person character here, blueprints, and I want to do here is on the start of the game, I want to start the widget. So I'm going to create a widget. Oh, not this. I'm going to call the method called create widget, okay? And in here we have a class, and we have the player, that's the owner. Don't need to worry about this, but the class is that we want to use the WP main UI. That's the one we just created in there. Cool. So we can compile and save. So you call a node from the reference here. You can call something called add to view port. Okay, if you compile and save again, press play, and there you go. Now we got health there. And as you can see, because we're using it auto scales with the canvas. Okay, one thing I want to do here is that I want to create the reference of my widget, so I can call the method, so I can call the events to update the health and not, right? Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna promote to a variable, and we're gonna call this widget ref, right? You can call whatever you want. I just always call ref as a reference, so I'm just gonna plug this in, and okay, there you go. And once again, the reason why I got the reference here is because I want to update the widget. So that's all you gotta do for the player for now. Now on the UI, let's create the event that will change this text, right? So make sure that you select this text here, the text value. Make sure it's a variable. Okay, can compile and save. And now what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create an event. So let's create a custom event, and I'm gonna call this event here update stats or something like this, right? And now we're gonna get the reference of this text that we got here. You also have the reference in that. If it's not showing up for you, it's because you have to click is a variable. Okay, make sure you click this. You can change the color if you want, you can do whatever you want that. And now what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna drag this guy here, and we're gonna look for a method called set text. Okay, and the set text is actually what's gonna change in the text of this, right? So, and the text is what's the value that you want to be. Because this is like an event, we can plug this straight away, because when we call the event, we are able to change the text because we need to pass this as a parameter. Okay? All right, so now we got this, we got everything. Let's create now an event on the player. And this again, you don't necessarily need to do this, but let's create an event on the player that we can call from anywhere we want. Like when he touches a cube or when he touches something, that something can happen on the player, right? So I'm gonna right click here. Probably this concept is new to you, but if I search for custom events, just to give a little bit of a context of what the events are. Events are things that you can trigger, like actions you can trigger in the game. Like in this one, for example, we're gonna touch a cube that will create an event on the player, that will create another event on the main UI that will change the text. And the main lesson of this course is just to explain how you can transport a variable from the actor to your widget using events and the thing update, right? Nothing too complicated. Once you get your head around, it's super easy to understand, right? Got an event here. I am gonna call this event trigger or update health. Sure, let's call update health. Even if it's not really updating health, it's just changing the text, but this will just update the health. Right, cool. What this event's gonna do is we're gonna get a widget reference, and I am gonna call that method update stats. Yeah? And then from here, I'm gonna plug these there. All right? Cool. If you double click on the update stats, it sends you to this, which is the event that we created. So as you can see here, it's like a domino, right? You got the parent, you got the children, you got the other children, so everything gets carried across, right? And because we have the widget reference, a very nice thing to do here that I always recommend to do is you call a node called is valid, and then you plug this here, and you plug is valid in there. Now we kind of got everything ready to change, but why the hell it's not changing, right? So we need something that will trigger this. So let's create an actor, right? So let's go to blueprint. Let's go to the test cube. So I'm gonna just create another one here. I'm gonna call this BP. Let's say change health, right? Something very simple. And in that, same thing. We're gonna use a sphere. We're gonna use a collision. We're gonna make sure the shape and the sphere radius is like 200. It's quite big. And we gonna make sure is hidden in game is set to false. So we see what we're doing. We see when we trigger this. Okay. Now we're gonna put in that. Cool. Nice. So now if I press play, I can see the sphere, but nothing gonna happen, right? So let's create the logic that will trigger that. And then in here, you could use some kind of an interface, but once again, let's make it simple. I'm just gonna do a cast, a normal cast, but you'll be totally fine just using interfaces as well, if you know already what we're doing, right? If you don't know what's an interface, I really recommend you watch the episode where I talk about interface. I think it's quite simple, the way I explain, and it's quite nice how does it work. Okay, So the other actor here, we're gonna cast to BP third person character, right? And in that, if you notice, we got an event here called update health. So let's call this method update health. Cool, right? And if you check right now, something should happen. That thing should be set to 0, to nothing. You see? That has been changed to nothing because we haven't put any text. But what we can do here is let's create something that we can, let's create a variable. Let's expose this variable to the object so we can change in here, right? Okay, so let's create a variable and let's call this variable health to update, right? In real life, like in real games, you wouldn't do this, but this is just so you can see how we can transfer from the actor to the player to the widget. Okay, and let's make sure that is let's set up here to health, right? Compile and save, and let's add a default value of, let's say, 100. Okay, now if I press play, that 10 should change to 100, right? And there's one cool thing about this as well, that what you can do here is that we can dynamically set the color. So let's change, every time that the player touch this, let's change to, let's say, blue or some color. Or actually, even better, let's pass the color as a parameter. So what we can do here is set color and opacity. Okay, plug it in there. This we're gonna plug it in here. So this is the color and the opacity. Now if you go back to the player, we can plug this here. And then if we go back to the character, we have the health, the color that we want to change. So let's promote this to a variable, and let's change this to text color. Right. So right now, let's add a default color. Yeah. Let's just add like I don't know, a yellow color. And what we can do here, let's just add to the same category as health. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna duplicate, I'm gonna put another one here, and I wanna make sure that this is, let's say, 50. And can I select the coloring here? Oh yeah, I think I can't because I need to make sure it's public. Yeah, make sure that's public, otherwise you won't be able to see the color you wanna select. And here we're gonna put like a green color, right? Press play. Now that thing should go to 50. It is green. And now it should go to 100. Yeah. So once again, it's a very simple thing. And now, you know, if you follow all the other series, where you got the health, where you got our, you know, the variables, all the data assets and everything, you can start to put all those pieces together and start to create your game. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.